Hey there guys, welcome back to ARTFX Studios, and this is Tutorial Tuesday Season 2 about glitch hop. And today I want to do a, pretty nice video about chord scales and melody. Again. But this time I'm going to use a totally different scale, and it's going to be completely different. So in the first season I talked about the A minor scale, which is somewhat similar to the C major scale. They both feature all the white notes on a keyboard or a piano, and these two scales are probably the most easy to work with, since you don't have to worry about any of the black notes on a keyboard, and you can basically just jam on all the white keys and come up with something interesting. But there are a lot of different scales that use totally different set of notes, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about a particular scale that I'm going to use for the track in the season, and it's going to be the scale of E flat major, also known as the D sharp major scale. I have right here, I have a website. This website is not my own, it's made by somebody else, but I use it a lot, and I want to show you why. This website has a couple of really good tools. So the one that I use a lot from this website is the Scale Finder. So you click on Scale Finder and you get this. So what you can do is you can find out which scale your particular melody is in, or which scale a particular track is in. Now, you'll have to find out the notes first, but if you know the notes, you can just put them into this little box right here. In all these separate boxes, you can see you can choose all of the notes, and you basically just fill in the couple of notes that you found out of a particular melody. You press Find Me a Scale, and it will show you all the scales that might be the scale that you're looking for. So, I'm going to select the D sharp E flat, and I'm going to press Find Me a Scale. So now it's going to come up with a pretty long list of scales. Now these are all scales with the note D sharp or E flat in it. Now the one I'm looking for is the D sharp E flat major, which is right there. And as you can see, it also shows us which the notes of this scale are. So I can now already show you that the notes are D sharp, F, G, G sharp, A sharp, C, D, and then again the D sharp. So you can see that this scale uses 3 sharps, and that's a lot different from the A minor scale. So one more thing, if you click on the title of the scale, you'll get a very, very interesting page. So on this page you get all the musical scale info about the D sharp and E flat major scale. On top, right here, we can see all of the notes that are in this particular scale. That's pretty helpful, but there is a much more easier way to remember which notes are in a particular scale. Every scale has a particular interval structure. Now I'm going to explain what I mean with that. Right here you can see the interval structure. The W stands for a whole step, and the H stands for a half step. So when we translate that to a piano, you can see that the interval structure of this scale is a whole step, another whole step, then a half step, then 3 whole steps, and then another half step. That is the interval structure for every major scale, and I just can, and I can show you. Let's take the C major scale to begin with. The C major scale is the most easy one. It uses all the white notes on the keyboard from one C up to the other C. So when we take this interval structure, which basically relates to every major scale, we can safely say and show you that from the C, one step up, a whole step, results in a D, then another whole step results in an E, then another half step results in the F, then we get another whole step, we end up in G, another whole step is A, another whole step is B, and then the last half step, and we end up at the next C. So I'm now looking at the interval structure of the D sharp E flat major scale, but the interval structure is exactly the same for every major scale. So if you just learn that W, W, H, W, 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 H out of your head and connect that to major scales, then you can find out every single major scale for every single key. The same goes for minor scales and all the other scales that you can work with. They all have a particular interval structure. So that's pretty interesting. You can learn it out of your head and you can really find out every particular major and minor scale without remembering the exact notes. So then we go to this particular area of the page, and this one is really interesting. This page basically shows you all the chords which are in this particular scale. So the most commonly used 3-note chords that fall within the E flat major scale are a C minor, a D diminished chord, a D sharp major chord, an F minor chord, a G minor chord, and a G sharp and A sharp major chord. So these chords are the most commonly used 3-note chords that fall within this scale. Now, without this web page, this would be a pretty hard thing to find out. I mean, it's not that hard, but it would take a lot of time. And with this website, it basically just shows you the most commonly used chords, and next to that it also shows you the other 3-note chords, which are right there. So we can see a C suspended fourth, which is, you know, like you raise one note, the third, you raise that to a fourth. You know, you need to understand a little bit of musical theory to understand this, but these are basically a little bit less known or less used chords. Then we get all the 4-note chords that are in this scale, and then last we get all the 5- and 6-note chords within this scale. And the most important and most useful thing of them all is when you click one of these chords, it'll take you to the page where you can see which notes are in the chord, how widely used it is, and in what category it falls, how you need to write it down, and even how you can play it on a guitar. I mean, that's really helpful, and it is really useful to keep this page open. So then we get this tab, and that is pretty interesting as well, because every scale has, most of the time, at least one scale that is equivalent to this particular scale, and it uses the exact same notes. So right here we can see that all of these scales, all of these ones, use the exact same notes as the D sharp or E flat major scale. But since you start on a different note, you get a totally different feeling. Now the only one that sounds exactly the same as this scale is of course the D sharp Ionian, because it uses the exact same notes in the exact same pattern. Then down here we can see something even more interesting, and this is what I want you to remember. Every major and minor scale has a pentatonic version of that scale, and a pentatonic version is basically a simplified version of a scale. So if we have the D sharp E flat major and we have all of these notes, and we go to the D sharp E flat major pentatonic scale, we can see that our interval structure has changed a little bit. So when we take a look at the E flat major pentatonic scale and the notes which are in that scale, so we can see now that when we take this E flat major pentatonic scale, that it is basically a simplified version of the E flat major. And there's basically just a couple of notes that we took out. I mean, we took out the A flat and we took out the D. So that being said, you now know that every major and minor scale has a pentatonic version, which is a simplified version, and we are going to use those pentatonic scales. So you can safely use a pentatonic scale to make the basic structure of the track, like your basic bass line and maybe a little bit of a synth line or chord line, but you can still use other notes that are not in the pentatonic version but in the E flat major version, and you can basically just use those notes together and it will still sound good. So yeah, what do you need for making funky sounding music? Well, there is no such thing as a funk scale. There is for blues, for instance. I mean, there is a blues scale, and sure, that scale sounds bluesy, but there's no such thing for funk. So how are we gonna make funky music, and how do you determine which scale you're going to use? Well, it's not really important which scale you use, because funk music is actually more reliant on the actual placing of the notes, the actual timing, than the melody in the notes itself. You can make a funky sounding melody with just 2 notes by really, playing it in a funky rhythm, and that way you can still come up with a really interesting funk sounding bass line or melody without actually spending too much time on musical theory and using notes. So let me switch to my instance of Ableton. You can see I've took out the funky chops for now, and I loaded up an instance of a piano, which you already heard, and I'm gonna play you the E flat major scale, and then I'm gonna play you the E flat major pentatonic scale. I want you to listen to the difference and the way the notes sound with each other. So first we have the E flat major scale. Let's see. That's E flat, then we go to F, then we go to G, then we go to A flat, then we go to B flat, then we go to C and D, and then the D sharp again. So another time. Now that sounds pretty good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but now comes the pentatonic version, and I want you to listen really closely to the difference. So here we go, the pentatonic version is an E flat. Then we go to an F, then we go to the G, then we skip the A flat and we go to the B flat, and then we go to the C. And from the C we skip the D and go to the D sharp. And let's do it again. So you can hear, that sounds a little bit more funky, but when we start playing a little bit more with rhythm, it starts to become a little bit more interesting. In that last part I used the D, and the D is not in the pentatonic version, but is in the major version, in the normal version of the E flat major scale, and thus it will still work. And the same goes for that A flat. So what I can do, for instance, if I put in that A flat in there, it sounds a little bit different. But when I replace the G for the A flat, we get, and that sounds pretty funky. So now we know the actual notes of this scale, and I can show you a little bit about how to make a funky sounding melody. So funky sounding melodies are all about rhythm. That's the most important thing. Sure, the scale is particular, you need to stay with your scale, otherwise it will sound pretty bad, but the rhythm is actually a lot more important. So let's add in a C. Right here I'm gonna add in a D sharp, and here I'm gonna do the F, and then I'm gonna go to the G sharp, So now we can start filling out the gaps. So let's say and you can see I've already come up with a pretty interesting rhythm. So, as you can hear, I've now already got a pretty interesting melody, and I'm going to use this as a basic melody for everything I'm going to do. So let's see how this one sounds with the drums. So these notes are still a little bit, you know, a little bit too much. So what I like to do is select all of these, except that one, select all those, zoom in a little bit, and, you know, just make them a tiny little bit shorter. So how are we gonna make chords that go well with it? So let's duplicate this track, and I'm basically gonna stretch out this one, the bottom notes, like that. Do the same for that one, and this one is gonna go like that. Like that. So now we need to make chords from this. I can see that the mainly used note is the C, but I've also used an A sharp and a D sharp. Well, D sharp is a pretty useful one, and then I can go up to the A sharp. Let's see how that chord sounds. Okay, let's wait. Let's transpose this up. Sounds like a pretty good chord. So here we have the D sharp, which also used. I've got an F, a C as well. Let's see what happens if we put this at an F and a C. Let's see how that sounds. I'm basically just playing around with the notes that are in this scale to find right sounding chords. And this shouldn't be that difficult. Just play around with it a little bit, try to find something interesting, and just keep remembering that you're just using the notes of the scale, because that will help you the most. I mean, that will make sure that at least everything is gonna sound right. So now we get So now my only question is, does it sound good with the rest of the melody? And it does. And that is because I've basically just used the notes within that particular scale. So there you have it. That's how you basically create an interesting sounding melody out of a particular scale that is not using just the white keys and the piano. And I would really advise you to just play around a little bit with particular scales, trying to find out how they sound and which one sounds best for your kind of music. From that, you can basically start writing patches for particular parts in the track and take these elements, you know, drag a little part from here, drag it to there, and, you know, you can make it sound interesting. So, for instance, I can throw on a silent 1, and let's initialize the patch. It's a saw wave. Let's drop it down a couple of octaves, and let's drop on that little clip that we made just now. Let's see if we are in the right key. We're way too low. Let's crank these octaves up a little bit. And now I'm actually wondering, does this melody sound good with the funky chops? Because if I am correct, these funky chops are in E flat major, so they should work together. Let's see. You know, it's just basically playing around a little bit. You need to find the right sounds that work together, since obviously these are all in the E flat major scale, but you know, there's some stuff, some notes in there that don't work too well with other notes of the scale. For instance, I can play 2 notes of that scale and they don't really sound good together. When I play those, they sound much better. You see, when I play these 2, they don't really sound that good as when I would play. Or, you see, they don't really work together. So, most likely a couple of these sounds in here use notes that I'm not really using in this particular melody, but it doesn't really matter, as we can fix that later on. I'm just looking for some, you know, some interesting ideas for this track, and the funky chops will basically only be used to fill out some little parts in the drop section of the track. I'm not really gonna use these funky chops all the way through the track. I basically just stumbled upon them in a couple of videos ago, but I'm not totally sure if all of these notes are actually the notes that work together with this melody, because when I play these 2 together, I don't know. You know, they work together, but it sounds a little bit off to me every now and then. So I'm gonna take out the funky chops for now and just listen to how this funky melody, the piano and the drums sound together. And I think these sound really well together. And with the drums again. So there you have it. This is the end of this video. I hope you learned something about scales and chords. I hope it wasn't too long and too uninteresting, as a lot of you guys seem to find my videos every now and then, but I don't really care, you know? I'm here to try to teach you guys something, and if you are not willing to listen or watch these long videos, then just go somewhere else and watch somebody else's tutorials. I'm doing it this way, and that will always be the way I do it. If you have any questions regarding this video, please click the bottom left to tweet them at ARTFX Studios. Click the bottom right to go to my website, register there, and you'll get an account for the forum, where you can actually talk about these techniques, talk with me, and talk with other producers on the forum who are also watching my videos. You can share your music, get some feedback from them or me, and just have a little bit of a great time. There's gonna be a lot coming up on my website soon. I'm going to launch a VIP section where you're gonna get a paid membership. You can buy a membership and you get access to a lot of additional downloads like patches, presets, samples, and I've also got some more in-depth lessons about music theory coming up. There's going to be a couple of different subscriptions on my website. There's going to be multiple prizes. There's going to be cheap ones so that everyone can join. With that, you also get access to a special VIP forum on which I'm going to do really in-depth feedback. And with the other two, you get access to the beginner and expert videos and a lot of articles about music production and marketing your music in general, which is really important, setting a brand for yourself. If you want to know more about that, please subscribe to this channel and I'll keep you up to date with the newest updates of my website. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a nice day producing. If you want to see more of these videos, subscribe.